Okay, has time run out for Neil Lennon at Celtic? The last 10 games make grim reading. The form book does not lie. I'm doing this by stats, first and foremost, and then we can argue what needs to happen going forward before the transfer window opens. Does there need to be a change behind the bench? Do players need to be moved out and players brought in? We can argue that. But the last 10 games make really grim reading. Their home form isn't great. Their away form isn't much better. Okay, you could argue they've got a few draws in there, but it's not great. The last 10 games, the run of the last 10 starts with a defeat 3-1 at home in the Europa League against AC Milan. They have a bounce back somewhat with a 3-3 draw against Aberdeen, where that's 6 goals conceded in 2 games. That's not great. They then travel to Lille for the Europa League and draw 2-2, so that's 10 goals conceded in 3 games. It's not good. That's some leaky defence right there. They turned things around somewhat with the Scottish Cup semi-final win against Aberdeen 2-0. So in a real crunch game, winner takes all, they can do it. Bang! They can prove they can right the ship a little bit and get a bit of positivity. It's a 2-0 win against a rival in the league who's pushing them for second place right now against Aberdeen. That's a good bounce back from that draw against Aberdeen as well. So in a crunch situation, yeah, they pull something out the fire, but it doesn't really last. They lose 4-1 at home following up a 4-1 defeat to Sparta Prague in the Europa League. That's going to become a trend with Sparta Prague. They then reversed that scoreline against Motherwell in the league away from home, winning 4-1. And then their next SPL game is away from home against Hibs. It's a 2-2 draw. So while they're scoring goals now, they've started to say they've clicked the scoring. They've had no goalless games at this point. They are conceding more than they score. That is a concern, which we can argue about in a bit. The away game against Sparta Prague is another 4-1 defeat in the Europa League. That's not good. And then the 2-0 defeat in the Scottish League Cup, second round against Ross County. I think that's the worst defeat out of the lot because you would expect them to win that game against Ross County, and they didn't. They had more shots on and off target and chances that Ross County created. That tells you something. So either they met a goalkeeper who was lights out, or they met a team that didn't mind giving up a bit of possession and chances because they knew that they could go forward at the other end, working out that the Celtic defence has only had 1 game in 10 where they kept the opposition scoreless. Celtic are conceding goals. Defence is a weakness, clearly, and maybe the goalkeeping position as well. And then the defeat midweek against AC Milan the other night, where they were 2-0 up at the San Siro and lost 4-2 in the Europa League. That is a problem. So let's break down the wins, losses and draws and where they happen. 1 win at home, 3 losses. 1 win away, 2 losses, 3 draws. Not good. Let's be honest on that. When it comes to the SPL, 1 win, 2 draws. So their SPL form, ironically, isn't bad in this period. Their cup form, they've had 1 win in the Scottish Cup semi-final. Scottish League Cup, they've lost. They've had 4 losses in the Europa League and 1 draw. So their cup form has contributed to this really poor run of form that they've been on. The next 5 games, this could be a positive for them, are all domestic. 1 cup final against Hearts and 4 SPL games against teams below them in the league. I think the Kilmarnock and Ross County games are the toughest they've got to face, and they're both at home. Ross County have already beaten Celtic at home this season in that Scottish League Cup victory the other day. That could have a bearing. Ross County know how to beat Celtic away from home, so they're going to be aware of that. The game against Kilmarnock is a must-win. Kilmarnock are not a bad side. While they're not in the top 4 at this point, they have proven in recent seasons that they are much better than what they used to be. They're a tough team to play against. They play a good style of football. That's going to be a tough game. That's a must-win, though, but Kilmarnock is going to be a tough opponent. Cup final against Hearts, anything can happen. It's a cup final. And looking at their cup form, with only 1 win in 7 games. 5, 6, 7. 1 win in 7 games in cup competitions. That doesn't bode well. Let's just say that. But they are playing Hamilton and Dundee as well in this period. The next 5 games are crucial because if you look at the league, they have games in hand on teams around them, which include Aberdeen, who are 4th with 28 points. They've got a game in hand there. Hibs are 3rd with 29 points. 2 games in hand on them. They're 2nd with 30, and they've also got a game in hand against Rangers, who are on 41 points. But I can't see them, as things are going with this form guide, catching Rangers at the moment, unless they can get at least 3 out of those 4 SPL games as wins. I think that's going to be the crucial thing there, is winning 3 out of 4 of the next couple of league games. The goals for and goals against, the stats don't lie there. They've only scored 18, they've conceded 25. That's a -7 goal difference. That's not good reading if you're a Celtic fan, so defence and goalkeeping are an issue. Where do we go from here? The Europa League has obviously skewed some of those stats. If we look at domestic games, yes, they're 11 points behind first place. That gap is surmountable. They can claw those points back because I can't see Rangers carrying on the momentum they've got throughout the entire season. They're going to slip up at some point. Rangers will have a rough patch. The fact they have games in hand, they have to win those games in hand. And this is where I think their league form needs to get them through. The thing is, out of 3 league games in the last 10, so they've only played 3 games in the league, they've only won 1 of them. So they're winning 1 in 3 league games as things stand. They're picking up a lot of draws. That doesn't really help them. And their home form isn't great either, with only 1 win in 4 games. Their away form isn't brilliant, but they are picking up draws away from home. A lot of their coming games are at home. And their home form is a bit shaky right now, including against Ross County, who they are playing in the league. They've already lost them at home in the cup. That is a concern. If they can't capitalise on their games in hand, and they can't capitalise on, let's say, weaker opposition, which it is, because this is Celtic. I think the toughest sides in there are Kilmarnock and Ross County. I can't see Dundee and Hamilton overturning them. But if they can't capitalise on weaker opposition, I think Lennon's out the door. Because looking at that defence, there's only 1 game in 10 where they've kept a clean sheet. They've conceded for 6 games in a row. They've conceded 4 goals. 1, 2, 3, 4 times they've conceded 4 goals. Conceding 3 goals, they've done that twice. When they concede goals, they concede them in hatfuls. It becomes a snowball effect. And yes, they are scoring goals because they've scored 4 goals once. 3 goals, they've got a 3-goal in there. They can score goals, but they can't do it consistently enough, outscoring the opposition. That's where that goal differential comes in. Because conceding 3 and 4 goals a game, you ain't going to win games doing that long term. That's not going to be a sustainable defence. If you're not scoring 3-4 goals a game, you can't afford to concede them, and to do that regularly is quite concerning. There are concerns with that defence. There are concerns. Yes, they've got a lot of these Europa League games out the way, and that's a lot of travel, but they've had back-to-back SPL games in there, and they got 4 points out of 6, which isn't bad going, but at the same time, they could have won both those SPL games. They had back-to-back against Motherwell and Hibs, and they didn't. And Hibs are actually playing quite well right now. The club that Neil Lennon left to join Celtic the 2nd time. So I think Hibs could be partly motivated because that's their old manager and they've done a number on him. But they have to take advantage of the coming games. I can see a possible change before the transfer window, because if you need to make changes, make the change now. New manager can come in, assess the squad and assess where changes are going to need to be made, because that League Cup defeat to Ross County I think is going to stick, and that turnaround that AC Milan did from 2-0 down showed that they've got a team that's clearly a better team on the ropes. They're winning the game, and then they stopped playing against an AC Milan team that isn't the same AC Milan of 16, 20 years ago. But they're still a good team, and if you're up at the San Siro 2-0, you want to get that 3rd, and they didn't. So I don't know if Neil Lennon's lost the dressing room, because I'm not sure these Celtic players are used to 2 wins in 10. That's something that in previous seasons, you take the Europa League out, even without the Europa League in there, I mean, that's still not good reading. If you take the Europa League games out, they still haven't done well. They've only got 2 wins without the Europa League games in there. So if you take the 5 Europa League games out, that's 2 wins in 5. That's still not good numbers, in considering how teams around them are playing. So has he lost the dressing room? Have they peaked as a group? Could question marks be asked over transfer policy? You work that out. I think their next 5 games are easier games than what they've been playing, but it's not a given that they win all 5 of those games. I mean, they've got a cup final in there, anything can happen, and they're playing an opposition in Ross County, for example, who've already beaten them and embarrassed them at home. They should be motivated to beat Ross County in that league game. If they lose that game against Ross County, I think that's his job done. He's done. If he can get, as I say, some wins in those next 5 games, win some silverware, that might give him a stay of execution. But I can't see him being manager there next season. I really can't, unless a magical turn of form happens and Rangers to start losing games left, right and centre, which doesn't look likely to happen. Yes, Rangers will hit a sticky patch where they drop points and have draws in there, and maybe the Europa League campaign does start to have an impact. But as things stand, they could lose further ground to Rangers and be overhauled by Hibs and Aberdeen in the league, which would then leave them fourth. So they have to take advantage of weaker opposition while they can. But then looking at the Sparta Prague are not a great side. Let's not kid ourselves when it comes to European level of football. Sparta Prague haven't really lit the world on fire in European club football for a while, and to concede 8 goals in 2 games is not good. I couldn't name you any of the Sparta Prague players of this current era. They have shipped 8 goals in 2 games against Sparta. That tells you where Celtic are at. Celtic have proven in European games before they can win at the Bernabeu with some of these same players that are currently in the squad, that they can win at the Bernabeu against the great Barcelona. I can't see that happening with this current Celtic squad, having a European night like that where they can overturn a real fancy team. I just cannot see it. And look how Rangers are doing in the Europa League. They're really taking to that competition really, really well. And I think they've definitely overtaken Celtic. And it's squad depth being tested. So this is where I think the transfer market and the moves they've made in the last couple of seasons is going to have an impact. But they've got to turn it around quick. What do you, as Celtic fans, think? Should Neil Lennon get sacked? Do questions have to be asked of the board and transfer policy and scouting and player development? And who would you get to replace Neil Lennon as Celtic manager if he were to get sacked? Or do you have faith in him to turn it around? I'll leave that to you. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.